So epistemology is the basis of everything that we have in terms of how knowledge is created and understood. So if we say that epistemology is the study of how language is created, formed, understood, then we need to see and look at it that that's the base, the usul of everything in terms of what we understand. So that epistemology dictates that we have to understand the world in ways that we can and communicate it, but the aspect of what limits us and what prevents us in that regard, and that's typically language, as well as whatever other things are there.
Yeah.
So language prevents us from understanding ideas because we have to have language in order to think of the ideas.
Yes.
To convey the ideas, and a lot of people on an individual level are limited in the language they have, and perhaps the language in itself.
So can I interject here?
Limits what they can think of.
Because we kind of talked about this just a minute ago. We're kind of doing a rehash. So technically, this applies to a language within the language. Say an English speaker for an English speaker. He's also limited by the range of his vocabulary within his own native language. As well as,
and perhaps more importantly, the idea that the person who is receiving that message, he's limited in his ideas.
Yeah, because he doesn't have the vocabulary to process what's being heard.
Nor does he perhaps have the idea, like the common ground in terms of language. That common ground that when I say to you, turn right, there's no problem you distinguishing what I require from you. But now if I start getting into something on a PhD economics level, and you haven't even visited the usul of it,
yes,
how are you going to understand that higher level? And so it's more than the vocabulary is what creates ideas.
Yes, it's sort of like when I'm just as an example, when I'm on YouTube and I'm using terms like spurious and whatnot, and people are like, you use these words and I don't understand.
Yeah.
And so therefore they can't keep up with the content and attack it.
Right.
For lack of, I'm just giving examples from real world examples I can understand and process. Again, language, and I'm processing the language in a methodology that I.
And this is something that's amazing.
Put my head around.
With we know, like from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was one of the things he said is that he was sent with, he was giving the concise, specific speech. And this is why when you're coming and you're giving a message like this to humankind, it requires that.
Yes, absolutely.
So, most sociology, the dominant theme within sociology nowadays is what's called constructivism.
Okay.
And constructivism basically looks at through the lens of epistemology, the idea of how knowledge is created, formed, and created and formed. Now, constructivism looks at how the external factors that are present when that knowledge is being formed, because it doesn't happen in a vacuum. There are external factors that exist.
So when we say external factors, we're talking about culture, religion, upbringing in terms of family, culture, if you will, for lack of a better term.
Any social interactions that occur between people and ideas.
Okay.
So the analogy that I give is with a sapling that's been planted in the ground. If you take that sapling and that sapling is planted in the ground and left there on its own, what will happen to it?
Well, it will grow in the direction of the sun, most likely.
Or it will die.
That too, if the conditions aren't correct.
If that tree is not placed, and this is what I mean by the vacuum.
Yes.
Right? If a tree is placed within a vacuum, can it grow?
No.
It needs to be placed in a place where there are external factors for it to get the things that cause it to grow.
Yes.
Those things like such as water, such as minerals from the soil, such as sunlight that aids in its growth. Perhaps even further elements like fertilizer, anti-chemical chemicals to create to keep insects away.
Yeah, antifungals to keep stuff off the leaves. Gotcha.
All these type of things that are around it. And as well, if that sapling is truly looked after and planted by someone who wants to see the well-being of that and to see that sapling grow into a healthy, productive tree, they're going to go and they're going to place 2 stakes by the side of that sapling, probably a foot away, maybe, 8 inches away, and they're going to tie fishing wire to that sapling.
Ensure it grows straight.
Why won't it grow straight?
Because it grows in the direction of sunlight.
Why does it grow in the direction of the sunlight?
Because, photosynthesis, it needs it for processing its food or whatever else,
So its natural inclination is to lean towards that which feeds it.
Okay, yes.
And that is kind of, in this example, in this analogy, we can put this, for example, with human beings. So the human being is the sapling, and perhaps the parents are the 2 wooden stakes. Perhaps, religion is one of the stakes, and the fishing wire that is attached to the tree to the wooden stakes. Perhaps that's the parents, the family unit.
Gotcha.
And that prevents it from inclining towards. Prevents it from being inclined towards the sun. Even though the sun is beneficial for it, too much of it
over time is going to
causes it to lean to one side,
to one direction,
which isn't healthy for it.
No,
nor is it beneficial for the people who planted it.
Gotcha.
And this goes in line with the parents who have that sapling, that seed that they've created. They want to see that child, under normal circumstances, they want to see that child grow up and become a productive, maybe for selfish reasons, but they want to see that child become productive and reach its full potential.
Absolutely.
In its later years, they want to seek perhaps benefit from that child. Or at least as a minimum, not have that child be a burden upon them.
Absolutely, I agree.
And that's where, kind of, if you look at so what is the sun in this analogy? The sun is what feeds it. It offers it benefit. But too much of it harms it.
Well, this is going back to what I was saying about like feminism, gynocentrism in that sense.
It can be any societal
influence.
But
okay, so now let's look at like, just coming back to the topic we were talking about earlier. So if we talk about, okay, homie, that's like some awesome driving right there. What's he up to? So if we talk about like the growth of feminism in Western society and in the world in general. So what is hypergamy in terms of like the fishing wire, the sunlight, whatnot, since this is a biological factor that no woman can escape, what is gynocentrism in the society when it transfers from a patriarchy to gynocentrism due to stability? And what is feminism? How do we classify this? Because let's be real, feminism is a type of a weed that needs to be starved, but at the same time,
it's probably the fungus. I mean, I haven't thought about it in explicit terms.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in general, like, because this is something I'm obsessed with.
So if we say that in terms of hypergamy, it's something that's
biologically,
it's an internal imperative that cannot be overridden.
No, it is a biological imperative.
In vast, almost the absolute, complete consensus manner. So then it has to be something internally within the tree. It has to be something. It's a part of the roots of the tree, perhaps, that come from the seed. There's no getting around that.
No. But my thing is this. Okay. Oh, shoot, man. I don't know how to verbalize it. See, here we go with vocabulary limiting.
You go with the epistemology.
Yeah. Okay. If this is biological and it's... Okay, wait a minute. Where are we on the map? Is this right? Yeah, no, you just keep going straight.
Village we went to.
That's really weird. Okay. Oh, yeah, it is, isn't it? This is from last night. Yeah, it is the same place. We just came through at night. if we look at hypergamy as biological,
Do not enter.
and therefore it cannot intrinsically be seen. Yeah, it's gonna cut back like
To the left,
to the left and then the right. So left and then it's gonna swing back right. As biologically, as something that's is a biological imperative. It's intrinsic to this particular gender of the human species. Therefore, we can't see it as entirely negative because that's led to the success of the human species. But when it's fed too much, then it turns into this beastly monster of insatiable hunger and pernicious viciousness. So, what the hell is it? Is it Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde? Let me see right here. No, right this way. Yeah.
Will it bring us on the one way though?
No, because the one way is this should be right. This looks right. Let me zoom in on this.
We got a stop sign. No, Einbahn.
No, it looks like we're on the right track, bro.
I don't think
we need to go left.
I don't think we can. Or is that just that road there?
No, that's just that road. See, yeah, there we go. So,
it's something.
This might be a little bit more complicated than just basic,
Yeah, on this particular example.
Okay.
But I mean, in general, I would say that anything that overly feeds. I mean, because what happens is the hypergamy isn't a problem in of itself.
No, it's not.
It's the external factors that allow it to do that. We never answered, or you never answered regarding to what is the sun in this analogy. And in general, the sun is society. It's greater society that we live within from a top level.
Okay.
The culture, the society that's within it.
Gotcha.
And it's those stakes that prevent that element of extremeness.
Mm-hmm.
It's those stakes that prevent that. So when we're talking about the patriarchy,
going to gynocentrism, we need the stakes. The stakes are the patriarchy that keeps the women in check from leaning towards that thing that feeds her, which is the sun. In our reference, it's Islam.
culture.
Well, for us, the stakes are Islam. That
and
prevents
the fishing wire is the family that ties her and teaches her and connects her to the religion, to the Quran and to the Sunnah. That's the fishing wire. Because if you just place two stakes there without fishing wire, there's no benefit.
There's no benefit. Interesting.
So the sun is kind of what's the societal level. The hypergamy isn't a problem in of itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's the element of society, of the sun, that creates the tree to lean towards that which feeds it.
Okay, well then I guess you could say a study on its own would be what causes hypergamy to go bad. Because technically it's beneficial, but if you overfeed it, it becomes harmful. It becomes feminism.
It dies.
Wait.
Take a tree, put it in the desert,
too much sunlight.
where there's too much sunlight, too much heat,
Yeah.
and only specific types of trees can survive
True.
without added care. It's not to say that, for example, in Saudi Arabia, there are only palm trees. There are other types of trees, but...
No, I saw lemon trees in Qatar.
But those type of trees are not going to exist without intervention. They require intervention. So these women, I mean men as well, children in general, but they require intervention. Whether it's religion, whether it's a strong patriarchal father, household, grandfather.
Like dude was talking about in the hotel.
Like he was talking about.
Grandfather's word was law. An exceptionally strong and clear patriarchal figure.
Yeah.
And it clearly affected him throughout his life because he's like, the guy's got to be pushing 80, if not in his 80s already. And he's still talking about it today.
And what did he say was his personal greatest achievement? Consistency.
Yeah.
That's something that you get from a strong, patriarchal, everyday wake up and continue on with whatever it is that you got going on. But in terms of how how does the sun affect that element of hypergamy
into something negative? Because like we said before,
at its root there's no problem with
at its root it's made us the apex species on this planet. But now when it goes overfed and unchecked, it becomes something quite pernicious. How do we reconcile that mentally in terms of, in examining it, that something positive, generally, okay, let's put it like this. Grape vineyards. We're talking about plants, fruits, vegetables, whatever else. You give it enough water, or a lot of water, and a lot of sunlight, a lot of the proper conditions, and it produces a lot of fruit and vegetables, which is good, or, fruit. So why is it that in the same analogy, feeding hypergamy actually turns it negative instead of something more positive?
In the same way that you take those same grapes and you add different conditions and they become alcohol.
But what I'm saying is this: if we look at it like this, we're looking at a comparison to where it's like, and stop me if I'm wrong, where if we give grapes a whole lot of the ideal conditions to grow the actual fruit, the fruit become poisonous off the branch. Or is it because of society? I don't know.
It's society.
It's society, okay.
It's that societal aspect that creates the tree to lean towards the direction that overfeeds it.
Yeah, until it falls over and
There's a thing I read the other day on the airplane, and they were talking about there's a big problem they're having in northern New England.
Okay. With
moose. What's the plural of moose?
I think it's probably a singular.
I'm gonna go with meese.
Because I think it's sort of like fish, it's like plural and singular.
Mouse, mice, moose, meese.
Okay.
And basically, they're having a problem because they're saying that because they've been having they're trying to tie it to global warming, but because they've had this exceptionally warm, irregular summers, winters, it's created a boom in ticks. And ticks are basically with these moose for a long period of time, their whole life, in fact. And because of the weather conditions being ample for the tick, it's creating a situation where calves are being born, and ticks are just descending upon them at rates that the calf cannot replenish its blood.
Yeah.
With the rate that the ticks are taking the blood out.
That's a lot of dang ticks.
And they're saying that out of like the past 2 years, almost 70%, I think they said, of moose calves have died in this northern New England region.
Wow.
So they're looking at what are the solutions for this. So basically the two solutions are we either hunt them or we leave them be. The idea of the hunting, they're saying if we kill off and we hunt these moose at a large rate, we reduce the rate of moose that are there for the ticks to feed on.
Okay.
We cut off the supply.
Yeah.
And then the ticks will die because they don't the rampant level of it.
Yes.
We're basically cutting it off to make it so that these ticks don't have the supply, and a lot of them will die, and hopefully they'll return to a more manageable number.
Yes.
And that will, I guess they believe, supersede the rate at which moose reproduce. And if you look at it from the perspective of what do we do, because there's an unchecked aspect due to what they believe to be the environment, and so now there's these added levels of ticks. It's creating a situation where it's not good for the overall population. And that's kind of, I think, where feminism and this aspect of hypergamy going into overdrive has created an idea where it's not healthy for the human species.
Hashtag kill all women. Let's talk about I'm joking.
Stop letting them suck the life out of us.
Hashtag kill all feminists. No, I'm joking. I wouldn't say that. That's feminist talk. Anyway, yeah. Okay. I do consider feminists to be like a parasite upon society, so that is a very appropriate story.
Right.
You know.
I mean, I see the idea that...
What the heck? Are you serious?
What?
Look at it.
What?
It's Morin.
Yeah.
And it's like a picture of a big lip black dude. Morin is like a Moors, the Moors. It's the name for a black person in German.
A glass company? What is that?
What the heck, man? Look at it. Are you serious? Oh, that's just foul.
This is Austria. We'll do what we want.
That's foul, man.
Hashtag Fritzl.
Anyway, dang Austrians. I'm calling Schwarzenegger and Trump. Well. Alright, well, it was an interesting conversation there.
Yeah, you gotta look at constructivism, I think,
Yeah.
to kind of get an idea of knowledge doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's created, it's formed within a society that has... Any cameras? It's formed within a society that limits it due to various things such as language, culture, and it has a limiting effect. It's not just this, wide open thing.
Yeah. Fair enough. Awesome. And you have your master's in what was it?
I have a master's in English, and I have my bachelor's in childhood culture and education.
Nice. Catch it on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. All at Abuamerican.